Hello, bird nerds. I'm Grant Williams. I'm not a photography expert, but hey, I love photographs of birds, and that's why Photography Friday is a thing. In the other window, that's Sandy Horne.
Hi
Sandy,
everyone. Hi Grant.
how you going?
Good.
It's been a weird week. Now, dear listeners and viewers, Sandy's going to talk about some of her challenges and experiences when it's come to buying gear, because that's what we're on about today. We're not telling you what to buy, how to buy it. We want to talk about some of those feelings and the issues that stop people sometimes from buying what they need to buy, or maybe what might be the best. And fear, uncertainty, doubt, FUD, FOMO, fear of missing out, gear acquisition syndrome. Got to have the next best thing. Got to have it. I can't do anything good because my gear's no good. Oh, all that kind of stuff. For those of you who don't know, I'm the host of the Bird Emergency, and I'm a bird nerd. Sandy's got a day job, but she is a fantastic amateur photographer. But I hate tagging that word on to you, Sandy, because you are a very, very skillful and empathetic photographer. And last week we raced through a bunch of your favourite shots from your Flickr album. But we talked about this one. Let's talk about this again, just to...
Yeah. Well, that's my photo of a backyard magpie, actually front yard, that has been shortlisted in the Australian Geographic Nature Photographer of the Year Award, which is remarkable because I see myself as a bit of a beginner, really. So really pleased that was picked up, because I'd tried for many years to get a photo shortlisted in one of those big competitions. And this one was chosen. I put in several, including wedge-tail eagles and things like that, but they chose this one.
Well, let's talk about how great images you can get without having to lash out for thousands of dollars on gear. Let's start with those Flickr photos, Sandy, out that you wanted to mention out of your early days. This was from when you had this is your first birding setup, is that right?
Yes, I had a kit lens. It was a 600D, so a really beginner camera, and it came with two lenses. It had an 18 to 55 lens that I used for happy snaps, landscapes, or people. And I didn't actually break out the longer lens for years. It sat there in its box. I didn't know what to do with it. But when I started trying to take photos in my backyard of the birds that would come into my apple trees, I got it out and I put it on and started to take some snaps. And this was my very first trip to Glue Pot with that setup. So 600D with a 55 to 250 lens, this one. I'm trying to get it in frame. And very basic gear, but I went out there and had a go, and that's what it's all about.
Now,
because
Sandy,
you can.
Is it this one? Because remember last week, was that the
200 to 200 to 250.
Yeah. So
no, that's not that one.
That's the good. That was your good one. Gee, where have I?
This one. It's really lightweight and plasticky. It's not a good lens, but it got me some shots.
That's your good lens. I'm not even going to try and go.
No, don't try. So I bought this gear in 2012 or 2011. 2011, I think it was. So I took myself off to Glue Pot with my El Cheapo gear. And I happened to bump into a very good photographer while I was there. I had the place to myself most of the day, but late in the day, I bumped into somebody who actually has had work in the Australian Geographic Award. And he was super kind to me. We were sitting in the bird hide together, and he had all the gear, the big lens and the flash gear and everything. And I was just overwhelmed. And there I was with my little crappy gear, but he was super kind to me and offered me a few tips, and we chatted. It was really nice. And I thought then that I'd always pass that along, pay it forward. So with beginner photographers now, I really do try to help them and give them a little bit of guidance.
Now, what I'm interested in, Sandy, is that purchasing that first camera, did you just go into a shop, or because 2011 you wouldn't have been probably shopping online for it like most of us are these days? Did you just go into a shop and make the decision, or did you search around, get every camera magazine you possibly could, read a million reviews? What was your process?
I thought I would like to get into photography a bit more seriously. So I decided to buy a good camera, and I didn't do much research at all, but I just heard that it's either Nikon or a Canon, and I wanted a DSLR. So I just shopped around and found a good price on this particular setup and bought it. I was pretty ignorant about the whole process, really, but I started with Canon, and I've stuck with Canon because I'm just too lazy to try and learn a new system.
Easier, wasn't it, when there were less choices? I mean, it was kind of
Yeah.
Nikon, Canon, maybe Pentax.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, I had a film camera, an EOS 500, I think it was, with the kit lens, and then I got some extender lens and whatnot, and I had a lot.
You're breaking up, Grant.
But since it's gone digital and mirrorless, I've been really struggling with purchasing decisions. But we'll talk about my stuff afterwards. Let's have a look at another one of these shots.
Yeah. Brown tree creeper.
And it's slightly out of focus,
Yeah.
but it works because the left hand branch is out of focus, but the right hand upright is sharply in focus, and the bird is in the middle, but the eye seems to be in focus. It's still a good shot. Hello, Sandy. Come to work. Someone's ringing you and saying,
It is.
"Oh,
It is a.
fill
It is a
in."
work call.
Someone's had to go
Sorry.
home, Sandy. Come and fill in. Look,
Sorry.
we don't really. We're not losing any sleep over the perfection of today's production. I'm sure people can hear. I'm still suffering from whatever I've had for weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a nasty flu a few weeks back too. It really knocks you flat.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about this. This is a glue pot as well, I'm guessing, Sandy.
Yeah. Yep.
Same trip.
Same trip.
Okay, and we'll just pull up the other one. This is a favourite bird,
Oh, yeah. Little Jackie Winter.
or brown flycatcher, as
Such a sweet little bird. And of course, when I was taking these photos, I didn't actually know what these birds were. I was back home editing them, sending them out to bird identification sites to say, what is this bird? So it was a steep learning curve for me.
let's go back to that one. Again, this is before autofocus was really fantastic, really keen in.
Oh, The
And
autofocus on that particular lens, that setup was awful. And in fact, I gave up and did it manually.
um, did you suffer any buyer's remorse?
No,
No.
no, because, it was worthwhile. I got my fun out of it, and it was a good starting camera for me because I didn't know how long I was going to stick at this hobby. So it was pointless for me to go out and spend thousands of dollars when I had very, very basic knowledge. So I was happy to spend that. I think that first kit cost me something like $650 or something. So that was a reason.
In $2011, so
Yes,
probably
yeah,
looking at about $1,500 or something nowadays. But
yeah,
you can get a whole lot more than you could have bought back then for $1,600. So
exactly. So I was really happy to spend that money and to start that process. And then once I got into it and understood it more, I was happy to add to that. So all of my purchases have been spread out over the years. So I've gradually worked my way up. But knowing what I know now, if I was to give anybody any advice, it would be the lens is the most important thing. I've had a very expensive lens bolted to a really cheap camera that's taken awesome shots. So it's all about the lens.
that lens?
Well, that lens will only fit on a very select few camera bodies. So you've got to be careful of that to compatibility. But I can show you. This is my RP. That's a mirrorless camera body. So it's a cheaper one. I think they're about $1,700 or $1,800 now. And that's an old lens, but I've got an adapter in the middle. So you can use your old lenses with your new mirrorless technology if you've got that adapter. But that long lens, that main long lens I've got, you can't bolt that to anything but 3 or 4 different Canon cameras.
And that obviously fits on your new camera, which is the 700,
Yes.
isn't it?
It's this one.
Yeah. So from the first camera that you had and the kit lens that took this shot of the beautiful red cap robin, how long did it take before you decided you wanted to get a better setup? Like, did you was it a quick process? And then when you needed to change up, when you'd understood that you need a better lens and perhaps you wanted, tell us what you were looking for. Was it the autofocus or was it distance? Did you want a fast lens, like a light that a lens that will give you more flexibility in lower light conditions?
All of those things. But as it turned out, my first long lens was just a lucky situation where I happened to go out on a birding trip with a group of people, and there was a man there who had a 400 prime for sale. So I tested it out on that day and I liked it. He ended up putting it in a shop in Adelaide for sale, and I thought about it and agonised about it. And I ended up going back to him a couple of weeks later saying, can I have that lens? So secondhand, that was about $950. So a considerable purchase for me at that time. That was in, I've got it written down here somewhere, August 2015.
Okay, so it was a 4-year kind of process from your first purchase and getting familiar not only with the cameras, but starting to get familiar with birds.
Yes.
And then moving up.
Yeah. So, so that lens turned out to be brilliant. I was really lucky because I knew nothing much about long lenses, but it certainly ramped up the quality of my shots immediately. So I was starting to get pretty frustrated. Oh, sorry.
They do want you to go to
Oh,
work
they
on
do.
your day off.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
what it is.
I know. So yeah, I was starting to get frustrated with my setup. I was aware that I was probably going to have to upgrade and do something a bit better if I was going to get better shots. And like you say, getting closer to the birds, so you need a longer lens. The 250 millimeter I was using, you had to try and get really close to the birds to get good shots, and that's tricky.
One of the benefits, though, of having the shorter lens, I think, when you are beginning, is that you get to see the birds that are a bit easier to approach, like the Jackie Winter, and like, well, in my case over here, the white brown tree creeper.
Yeah.
Birds that are not really cryptic and that are not are not usually too upset when they know people are watching them.
Yeah.
You know, some of the honey eaters are in that
Yes.
are in that case as well. So you can sort of hone your craft. Did you find it? What did you find more rewarding straight away, Sandy? Was it getting to understand the birds, being familiar with the behaviour of these new creatures that you probably didn't have that much of a deep interest in before you were training the lens on them, or was it the developing the technical skills and being able to sort of be a bit artistic in the way that you represented the birds?
It's all of those things, really. Getting in nice and close to watch them. Of course, the artistic side of it comes into it because that's part of who I am. I love to watch bird behaviour, and that's part of birding too, because if you're going to get good shots, you need to understand where they're going to go next. It's hard to narrow down just one of those.
What about the post-processing side of it, the editing and, all the stuff that I still have?
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yes.
have no idea about really, and that I can't wait to get learning about. But the touching up, the whole studio that is your computer. When did that become as important as getting out and taking the shots for you?
It's always been important for me because I have that background in printing and publishing and graphic arts. So I was familiar with Photoshop. So that's a big part of it. I do enjoy getting home at the end of the day of birding and having a look to see what I've got and then editing a couple of the good ones. It always gives me great satisfaction. And then as I'm going through them, I'm remembering the moment. So I'm going back through my head and getting those same sorts of feelings that I got out in the field. And even now I can look through old photos and I'll remember the circumstances. I can remember where I took that red-capped robin. I know exactly where that was and I remember the moment. And I think that was the first time I'd seen a red-capped robin, in fact.
That's an interesting point, Sandy, about that experience of the lifer, the first time that you see a particular species.
Yeah. I've got a spreadsheet.
What I was wanting to know is how many of the lifers is it the first time that you actually glimpsed the bird? I don't mean on a photography trip, but how many do you reckon the very first time that you've glimpsed and identified a bird species has it been through the lens, or have you sighted it with naked eyes or binoculars first?
You've always got to get the shot, or it doesn't count. I don't actually put it on my my spreadsheet unless I've got a photo of it. So a lot,
So
a lot of people.
you're the evidence. You're the evidence
Yes,
person.
yes, I've got to be able to prove it. So everybody has their own way of measuring their lifers, and for me, it's actually getting the shot.
Let's
So there have been a few birds I haven't got shots of, and they aren't on my spreadsheet, like the chiming wedgebill. I've seen one and I've heard one, but it can't go on my list because I don't have a photo.
I do like that. Even if you've identified it from its call, that you don't tick it. Um, That'd be a really interesting thing to discuss with some real fanatical listers. Um, uh, you're obviously not putting a whole lot of your self worth in the bird community in the size of your list, Sandy.
No, my list is pretty pathetic, to be honest, but I keep working at it.
But you can show someone everything on your list.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
Chris's comment. Hi, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Hope you're getting something out of this discussion. Brown tree creepers in Alexandra. Now, it must have been pretty cold in Alexandra this morning, I can say. Chris, are you using, Chris? Follow up with the comment. Tell us what phone you're using to take shots, and are you using any of those little add-on lenses that you can get for the mobile phone to extend your reach a little bit? I have a fairly old iPhone, and unless I'm within 20 feet of a fairly large bird, it's just not worth me even trying. I have got some nice videos of the corellas and cockatoos and whatnot that I was feeding early in the park in the pandemic, but it's not worth trying to get the little wattle birds or anything as they're chasing each other around. It's just not worth it. And of course, because it's a fairly old one, I can't even do any post processing and blow them up because they're just so grainy. So tell us what you're using, and do you regularly record what you see around you? Sandy, are you constantly thinking, gee, I'd like to buy another lens. Oh, I could do with another body. Oh, I wish I had some infrared gear so I could go out shooting owls and possums.
I don't do a lot of that. I'm actually quite content with what I've got now. I think my setup's really good. If I was super wealthy, I would probably buy some of those really big prime lenses that are up in the $20,000, $30,000 range. But I don't have that sort of money, so that's just not an option. But I'd like an assistant to carry it all around for me. It's the thing I would really like.
Sorry there.
That's all right.
Yeah, I have to say that being a full-time podcaster about birds, that's not good for getting an income for buying any sort of good camera gear. So I'm in that always looking through the second-hand bargains, and I know pretty much what I want, but we'll leave my awful story to the end. Here we are, Chris. Thank you again, Chris. My iPhone's a 7, Chris. So traded up from the 4S to the 7. I'm thinking of getting a bit further. Okay, so you Chris puts everything on bird data. Chris, do you try and get a photo of everything that you tick off your list, the way that the way that Sandy does. Be interested to hear who else is doing that. It's a bit of a different discussion to have. When do you validate your observation and call it a tick? I've got lots of birds that I know that I've seen, but I haven't got on my list. I don't. Although my list, I haven't I don't update it frequently. Whenever there's been a taxonomic change, and I might be able to get 3 more ticks or something.
Yes.
I'm just not. I'm more into watching the birds and seeing what they're doing than telling anyone what number I've got. Haven't got a clue what it would be. Here we go. This is great. Sharon Moffat Dole, again from Facebook. Hello, it's great, Facebook. Hello, everybody on Facebook. iPhone 11. Yeah, that's what... I think that the shift between like a 7 and an 11 is probably between a kit lens and one of the $20,000 lenses that Sandy was talking about. The photo technology on the new iPhones and everything is okay. Good. Sharon's also saying it's not a tick unless you can photograph it.
Yep.
So my question would be to both Chris and Sharon, and to you, Sandy. How many entries have you got in the Great Bird Terrible Pick hashtag or Facebook group?
Oh, the Crap Bird Photography Facebook group. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
yes.
I was just trying not to swear because I have to.
Oh, sorry.
But no, it's. I'll just put a duck over any words.
Well, yes, I love that list, that Facebook group, and I've got quite a few in there. And I don't delete everything anymore. I save the bad ones just for that group.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last week.
Sharon wants one of those prime lenses. So
yeah, and she agrees.
This is that prime lens.
Yeah.
That I bought for $950.
And we talked about that in great detail last week. So now the podcast episode of last week's discussion goes live in the podcast feed today, and this discussion this week will go live next week. So this is what we're doing it for. We like the feedback and the input. So calls are sightings. I agree with that. But do you have to record them on your phone at the same time? I don't know. I rarely, when I'm out walking, do I have the phone in a position where I want to be. I suppose too. I'm more often than not birding in the suburbs, and you don't want to be looking like the weird dude, you know. I think that drawing attention to yourself is often something, certainly on this side of town, you don't want to do. But yeah, I call a call. If you can recognise the call, I'll give you that. I'll put that on the list for sure. So Sandy, having made one step up with your gear, when did you sort of go into that macro field, and did birds lead you to landscape and to macro, or were you on that track at the same time?
I think birds led me to more photography, because when you're out in the bush and you're out there at sunset and you see a glorious sunset, you just have to take a shot. So typically I've got a couple of cameras with me at any given time. And if I'm heading back late in the day, I'll often stop to take a photo of the hills or the sunset or whatever. And I enjoy that, but it doesn't float my boat the way bird photography does, because I don't see it as challenging. I always like to get good shots of whatever, even architectural shots. But it's the bird photography that really does it for me. So the macro, that was just something I thought I'd like to have a go at. So I bought myself a macro lens, and I've enjoyed that. It's a real hard workout sometimes when you're down on the ground trying to get tiny little orchids and things, but it's a nice thing to do if the birds aren't around. If the birding's really quiet, I can usually find something else to take a photo of.
Let me take that out of the stream for a minute, and because I've got your Flickr up, which album should I be looking for your macro?
Probably Botanica.
Let me. So it's got a comment up. I'll just pop that up, and you can talk to Janice while I have a look in your Flickr, Botanica. Oh, I like your Droseros. Gee, look at that.
Yeah, they're lovely.
What did Janice say? You can read it out while I'm...
She said, I'm a bird enthusiast, not a photographer. I struggle managing my binoculars while using the ID app on my phone, let alone trying to throw a fancy camera to capture the bird in there as well. Well, I don't ever try to ID a bird out in the bush. I take a photo and then I take it home and get the ID once I'm at home. And I don't use binoculars at all. I look at everything through my long lens. So that's not a piece of kit I have, although a lot of birders do have binoculars.
Yeah, I'm pretty old school. I think I'll always have binoculars with me when I'm out and about, but not on my normal walk around the park. I must say, I don't.
Yeah, yes.
I don't do that. Actually, that's something I'd like people to comment on. Do you ever feel inhibited when you are out with your camera gear in a public setting,
Yes.
or recording? Yeah. So
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You have to be pretty careful. I was once in my hometown taking photos, and my sister took me out to this pond because she said there might be some good birds there, and there were. And I was happily taking photos, and a man rocked up in his ute questioning me about why I was there. And there happened to be an abattoir nearby, and he was the owner of the abattoir, and he was concerned I was a greenie getting shots of the abattoir. So I had to quickly explain what I was doing there. And he was happy. He went off. That was fine. But yeah, you do have to be a bit careful. People can take exception. They think you're taking photos of them. So you have to use your judgment. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling through some of your Botanica pictures, Sandy. Tell us the camera and the lens you use when you are getting those close-up shots with. That is
a 100mm macro lens. I'll have to look up the details. It's an EF 100mm f 2.8L macro, Canon macro lens. And it's a nice piece of kit. In fact, I'm going out this afternoon and I'm going to go and look for some orchids and flowers and things. And I'll have that with me. That's not a macro lens. There's a mixture in here. In Botanica, there's a whole mixture of photos.
See, I look at that photo and I go, oh my God, look at all those noxious weeds.
Yes, exactly. They're gazanias. Yeah, and that's That's on the Eyre Peninsula, and they're a huge problem over there.
Yeah, and they're a problem in a lot of parts of Australia now. I think they're very, very adaptable. Same
They
with
are.
the Cape weed. That's the
Yes.
Gazania or Cape Daisy. What do you got there? A nice little Mesembryanthemum, I think they
Is it?
or the noon flower, little succulent with the purple flower.
Yeah.
That'll be the fringes of marshes and wetlands and
Yeah, that was at a wetland at Arno Bay. Oh, there's a bit of spinifex. But that's not a macro lens. That's not a macro shot.
no, that's a landscape shot.
Yeah.
Same with that. Oh, that's a nice shot, Sam.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
That's the flowering spinifex. That's what the flowers look like, the seeds. And so I just really liked it. I could see the potential and took the shot.
Yeah, you've got the down here. You've got the green and the delicate red of the new growth at the nodes, and then the light coming. How do I go out? There we go. And the light coming from the side. I think there, Sandy. Into yeah, very nice. And your magpies are back too. That's good.
Oh yes. Yeah, sorry about that. I can't control that, sorry.
No, it's good. I like it. I like hearing them through the background. Most of these look like they're landscapes, so I'm going to go back to the album. Excuse me while I just cough for a minute. Sorry, everyone. Where's my... Thought I was healthier than I am. I think everyone. I'll share my story about my purchase because I've gone through the whole pandemic waiting for either things to get good, the supply chain to get better, or the international postage to be available. So I bought. I decided that I was going to go micro 4/3 because I'm hoping that next year I spend a lot of time on the road doing a number of things that are loosely wrapped around the podcast. So I wanted to have stuff that didn't take up a lot of room and that was fairly lightweight for travelling, because I've got to take all the audio gear and then the sound gear, and then I've got to try and take everything else that I need in like one small case. So the idea is that I don't have anything more than an audio case, a camera case, and then a small backpack. That's got to be the lot. So I bought a Lumix Panasonic GH4, which is 2 models back in their hybrid video cameras, because a lot of what I do obviously is with a camera, and I want to be doing interviews out with people on location. And I was so excited. It turned up, but it didn't work. Wouldn't power on.
Oh dear.
So I thought, must be a dodgy battery. And I bought it from overseas too, through eBay. I thought, it must be a dodgy battery. Must be a dodgy cable. So bought some cables, bought another spare battery, bought the battery power adapter insert thing. No action. Oh, God. So took like 6 weeks to get here. Took me weeks to send it back. Took weeks to get my money back. Now I'm just waiting for what to do next. And it was all beautifully timed for the relaunch of Photography Friday and everything. But so there we are.
So frustrating. That's frustrating.
Yeah, and in a way, I'm kicking myself because I spent so long trying to make the decision, and I'm going to be far less far less concerned about making the right decision next time. Um, but because I'm in that second-hand market and that
Yeah.
cameras are now like cars,
Mm.
in that what as we came into 2020, things that I could have bought for $400 are now looking at 1,200, $1,500 on the used market because everyone's got a new hobby, right?
Mm.
And um, and 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 the supply chain issues have made it really difficult for the camera manufacturers to get their new product out into the marketplace.
Yes.
So anyone looking for new gear is trading up to the next model of second hand, the later model, rather than waiting for the brand new one. So that's my story. I wanted to tell it last week and see if Nico had ever had a similar issue with buying something that was so exciting to get the box, so disappointing when the reality hits home. Have you ever bought a bad piece of gear, Sandy?
Uh, no, I don't think I've ever had a piece of gear that I've regretted buying, put it that way. Because even if a piece of gear isn't ideal, I think you always learn from it. But yeah, no, I think I'm pretty content with my stuff.
Are you looking at trading up um, again? Like, are you?
No, I'm happy with what I've got for the moment. I think this will keep me going for a few years. I've spent an awful lot of money in the past 12 months. I really can't justify any further purchases at this stage. Although I would say that I'm sort of stuck in the whole Canon gears, but there's a whole lot of new stuff out now that you don't have to carry around these heavy cameras anymore. So I am a bit jealous of these people that can go out with their much lighter weight, much more compact cameras and get good shots.
Um, so do you have a local camera shop or dealer or something that you go to get servicing or repairs, or do picking up some new fast data cards or something? Like,
I,
do
do,
you have a
I, do,
relationship with an outlet?
I used to, and then they let me down. I used to always, I won't mention names, but I used to go to a shop in Adelaide for all of my gear. And I went in once and I felt treated like a woman who didn't know anything. I was sort of talked down to. And a couple of other little things happened, and I thought, I'm not going back there again. So I shop around. I use all the different shops. And I've sometimes ordered, the high speed little cards. I use the cards that super high speed ones. They're quite expensive, about $300. So I'll buy those online quite often because you get a better deal online than you can from a bricks and mortar shop. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think I really want to find a local or at least an Australian outlet that um, it can deal with. But um, I, you just um, you can't rely on the pricing because of the movements with the dollar and whatnot. So um, when it's such a high, I mean, for me, anything with the photography or actually anything with the audio as well, is such a high proportion of the income that I make that I is make the choice that I would like to when it comes to some of um, the periphery gear. Um, I kind of wish I bought the camera locally, but it would have been. I think it worked out to be something like nearly 40% more to buy it
Okay.
from an Australian store because
Yeah.
I don't know why the prices are so high. Um, certainly when you pay the import duty coming from overseas, you're paying the import tax. So it's got to just be profit. It's got to just be the extra whack of profit. But
It's kind of nice to be able to go into an actual store and go and speak to people and buy your item and walk out with it in your hands, and to support local stores. So I actually do like to buy over the counter, but and I'll quite often do that with my big gear. But for the little stuff, the peripheral stuff, I'll often buy online.
so, for those in the watching now, have you ever had a horrific or extremely disappointing gear story? I I haven't with any of the audio gear that I've bought. I've been lucky with all the audio stuff that I've bought. That I've bought quality gear, usually on a budget, but researched and checked out reviews fairly closely. Now, Sandy, you haven't sort of done that. I'm wondering I'm wondering as well what people think when they are going to buy new gear. Are they avid readers of reviews, or who do you listen to? Sandy, you mentioned you got a lot of good advice from people on birding trips. Um, I wonder if that's really common, or whether people are doing, especially over the pandemic, where we've been watching experts on YouTube.
I've also picked people's brains. I've got a couple of friends who are really good photographers, so and they do read reviews. So when I was looking to get the R6, I sort of went to these friends and they went and read all the reviews between the R6 and the R5 and gave me some guidance there. And one of the people were Nico. I went to Nico for some advice. So he was very helpful.
Well, that's why he's part of uh, uh, the panel, the team that we've put together for this, and that's really how I want a way for people to get some really good information from people who really know their stuff and have got a lot of experience to back up their opinions, and that um, because I'm totally starting out and coming from a perspective of where I, I'm, I still will be reading things and thinking about it in the way that I always thought about photography in the film days, and it's a lot of the now, and in fact, it seems that, um, and I'm looking forward to getting a camera with some really good auto exposure and playing around with a lot of the settings. That it just seems to be a lot easier to be at the basic level. I don't misinterpret my remarks by saying that it's easy to be a good photographer. I'm not saying that, but I think it's easier to go out there with so many of the take decent shots, to be happy with, to be showing your friends and family, and to getting the point across.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've known a few people who have
over
got it. Sorry, I'm talking over you.
no, we just had an NBN glitch as
Yeah.
normal. But the issues of overexposure and underexposure are far less dramatic, I think. I think than they were when I was working in a dark room and with one of those, the bags, where you take it
Yeah.
into pieces. Oh,
Yeah. I've done that.
very old school, very
Yes.
old school. Using
Uh,
the slide films. Remember, processing slides, boy.
yeah.
See, I'm really old. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In the dark room at school, that's where I went. Oh, and I mean, I'm reluctant to even say it, but remember having the what was the enlarger and trays of bloody chemicals and everything.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
was
Did
such
all
a
that.
it was such a different experience, and
Yeah.
I'm coming into it from that. The intermediary for me has been this, right? So, um, yeah, that'll be fun. Well,
Yeah.
no one seems to have had a horror story. That's disappointing. Well, no, that's not disappointing me. Disappointing me because we haven't got any content to chuckle and laugh about. But um, I'm really glad that people are not having bad decisions or bad experiences with their purchases, because it's such a they're big ticket items. You know,
Mm.
getting a bad
Yes.
camera is like getting a bad car, being stuck with a lemon
Yeah.
that you know, and having warranty issues and all that. And of course, warranties and all that are another whole other issue. Have you had any problems with repairs or warranties?
No, never had any issues. Really lucky.
That's great. What about gear being lost or stolen? That's the other thing that I
No.
worry about with the idea of travelling.
Yes, well, it is a worry, but I've never had anything stolen. I have dropped cameras, which is horrible, but I haven't actually broken anything. It's a miracle because I sat my camera on the bonnet of my car once to take a selfie. I was up on top of this cliff and it was just beautiful. So I'll get a selfie, set it up, and I walked to the edge of the cliff to take the photo. And I watched as the camera slipped off the bonnet of the car onto the rocks. And I thought, oh, there goes my camera. But it was actually fine. It was a miracle.
That that's good news. That is good news.
Yeah.
Um, so acquisition syndrome is not something that's ever bitten you, Sandy.
Oh, well, I can't say it hasn't ever because sometimes I give in and go and buy the thing like the macro lens. And you never know, there might be something new coming out soon that I might say, oh, I would really like to have that. But generally I have to save up for stuff. I don't I don't make spur of the moment choices. I think about it. I get people's opinion and then yeah, I have a look around for a good price. Yeah.
Now we talked about this briefly last week with Nico, and I wanted to explore this more with Nico today, but I might flag it just for comment if people want to talk about it. Um, how important is the ability and um, uh, the the capabilities to do video in any purchase that you've made, Sandy?
I I don't look for that because it's not something I do a lot. I do a little bit of it, but it's not the thing I like to do. I'm interested in the stills. But the video I have done with my current setup has been fine. But then I don't know much about video, so I don't know what's good and what's bad. So I do have a microphone that I can attach, a good one, which is probably essential if you're going to be doing anything. Uh, you know, the onboard microphone is shocking. But yeah, that's about as far as I can take that.
Yeah, I was really we were hoping that Nico would be with us again today, but he's actually a photographer who's out there
Yeah.
working, and he had to do some work. Um,
His
I'm
work's
just
brilliant.
yeah, I'm just going to pop into another one of your albums, Sandy, so we can.
There are a couple of videos in there.
Um, I just want to. I wanted to have a look at this sequence, so because it's uh, different to what so much of your stuff is.
Oh,
Um,
goodness. Yeah.
now, are these? Oh, this is 2022. I thought,
That was in June.
yeah. Um, let me just move along. There we are, 2022. Lovely shots. Where were you? Where you took
That
this?
that was at Lincoln National Park,
Oh,
south
there
of
we
Port
are.
Lincoln.
There we are.
Yeah, and that was a lifer for me. I hadn't seen a gannet before, so yeah, it was just interesting to watch them feeding. That it was. They were a long way away. These are very tight crops. Oh, there we go, cormorant.
Yep. Now that's a bit reminiscent of one of the shots we talked about last week,
Mm,
Sandy,
mm,
with your black swan.
mm.
Um, but I'm guessing you did not play around to get that effect with this. This is just
Yeah,
what happened.
yep. That's pretty much how it came out of the camera. So yeah, I just like the reflection.
Yeah. Um, Almost in Mill Pond. Where was that? Whyalla.
That was
Uh,
Wyler. Yeah,
yeah, Air Peninsula. I do
that
like
was
your. I do like
that
the
was.
detail you put in your Flickr too, so that people can
Yeah, I
see
always
what
give it a
you're saying.
caption. Yeah.
Now that is a beauty for listeners. Um, I'll always try and put all of the pictures that we refer to in the on the show notes, so that you can, if you are listening, you can then go and look at what we were talking about. Um, Female wood duck. I wish we could have a better name for the wood duck, because
Hmm.
it's a very handsome beast, and look at the
It is.
details in the
They're
primaries and
they're
the
absolutely stunning.
coats. Yeah,
And that was just down at the local pond here, a suburban pond, and it was a really cold, dull day, so it was not perfect for birding, but it shows you that you can find birds anywhere, and you can go birding in any conditions and find something to take a photo of. Thanks, Sharon.
sorry, I was muted on both of those last two. Really, really, really good. Um, Sharon, what do you normally take photos of? Be interested in in that. Oh, there's your another black swan, Sandy. Was that actually? Let me ask you, Sandy. Are these black swans that are in this album? Is this the same? Is this the same bird or the same day?
No,
For
it's
when?
not the
No,
no, no, different day, but they could well be the same birds,
same location,
same
Greenfields wetland.
location.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. We might pull out of there now. We've covered most of what I wanted to talk so far today, Sandy. The the fear, uncertainty, doubt, I think, is the thing that I am struggling with, especially now, having bought something uh, online, waited so long for it, and the experience being less than less than satisfactory. So, um, but I'm not deterred. I'm watching every day for the next thing to come up. I may I may be switching um, from one maker to another, but I still think I'm going with the Micro Four Thirds. But um, there's two main options: there's the Lumix and the Olympus, or what are they called now? OME, or whatever they're no longer called Olympus, but they've got an O. So I'll still be looking at something like that. But I need something as well, which is good for doing this, because I'm only using the laptop camera. I don't want to waste my time with a webcam. I want to get another camera that'll be good for doing interviews. So I am looking at the Canon, um, the cheap sort of video logger kind of end of the market. Lumix have got one. Sony have got some, of course. But yeah, if anyone's got any suggestions or recommend based on your own experience, your own use, that's what I'd be interested in. Not what some YouTuber told you. Okay, Sharon, mainly birds and whatever else takes my interest. So Canon 80D and 100 to 400L. What's the autofocus like with that lens? I'd be interested in that, Sharon. And photos for your art. Tell us about your art. I'm very interested to know how you are using your gear. You do some arty stuff, Sandy. How often do you go out with the mindset that today it's art and not birds?
I don't do that enough. I should do more of that. I need to, when you're doing that sort of stuff, it's good to plan because you've got to have the light just right and everything's got to be just right. So I think the way to do that, like if you want the reflections, you need to go out at 5 a.m. every day for a week to one location and keep trying to get that shot, because with the light you've only got it for a few minutes. You've only got a few minutes to get the shot. So that's on the back burner of things I want to spend more time doing. But the arty stuff at the moment just comes through luck, really. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I can see the potential, so I go for it.
How much, when you're looking to make an artistic statement, so if you've got something in mind, like reflections or something. I mean, it's hard to talk about what might be in the mind of the artist as you're heading out there with your inspiration at 5 a.m. every morning for a week. But how much of what you achieve in an art sense, I feel like we should be on the ABC at 10:30, talking crap to about 3 or 4 people. Oh my God, that's what we're doing. How much of it is in the setup and the way you set the camera up, and then click the shutter button, or how much of your artistic influence on the final image is done using post-production techniques?
Oh, I really like to get it straight out of the camera like that. I think I don't use a lot of the filters. Sometimes I muck around with it, but it's not what I like to do. I want to be completely honest with my work. So the challenge for me is to get the shot out of the camera as it should be. So sometimes I go out with something in mind. So I've sometimes done the vertical panning or the horizontal panning or the circular panning. That's fun to muck around with. Haven't done a lot of that, but that can be fun.
Now, there we go. That's the concept. Thanks, Sharon. It's much faster. This is talking about a 100 to 400L lens. Much faster than the Sigma lens. And, of course, if we're going to talk about what faster means, that means you can get you can more easily get correct exposure in a low light situation. Is that a fair enough layman's summary? Of course, it's far more technical than that, but is that what you would say a fast lens does, Sandy, with the with a narrower aperture. Is that the way we would
Uh,
talk about it?
I don't know. What was the question exactly? I'm not understanding what you're
Oh,
saying.
just what I said. A fast lens. If your
Yes,
lens is faster than the one you used to have, generally means you can operate in a lower light situation with
yes,
a narrower aperture, but still get
yes,
correct or acceptable exposure.
yes,
Without,
that's very true.
yeah,
And in fact, this has been a discussion on many of the birding lists lately about how the new technology, the mirrorless technology, the ISO is unlimited. It's incredible. There was a time when you wouldn't go above a certain ISO, like some people would say 1600 ISO. Don't go
that's
above that,
right.
or
Even
800.
yeah, I can remember
So
1,000 ISO on my film camera. That was radical.
yeah,
That
you
was
wouldn't do that. But with the new mirrorless, it's phenomenal. I will regularly go up to 3200 quite comfortably, and you can go much higher than that. So if you're in a dark forest or whatever, it's just not a problem anymore.
that's how people are taking amazing pictures of owls, isn't it? So
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
so well, we can talk about that whole thing in another episode when
yeah.
we prepare a whole lot of shots where people have pushed the ISO way out, and we'll talk about the situations when it can be used. But we'll start to wrap up, Sandy. But I, I'd really like to explore in a forthcoming episode that idea about what's honest when you're taking your photos. I think that's a really interesting idea to explore. Um, I don't really have an opinion on on it, uh, using the term honesty, but the the ethical application of photography with wildlife, I think, is really really important, and it's about being ethical in the treatment of the animal, but also the treatment of the location is really important. But we'll kick that around next time. Um, you guys who are still in the peanut gallery, what do you think about the whole idea of being um, honest with photography? Oh, my throat's really getting to the end.
Oh,
And 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 when you're using your photographs as records, primarily as records for your birding activity, um, should you really put a filter of any sort on any of those photos? Um, that's really that's interesting. I mean, they're your photos. Do what you want, can't you? But
that's
but
right. I
what would the
Yeah,
bird think?
yeah. I don't judge other people for what they do generally. That's it's their hobby, it's their thing. They can do what they like. But I know I have certain standards for myself, which I follow.
Yeah. Do you do you, I know you often haven't taken photos of nests. You recounted those situations last week. Um, what about courtship and that kind of behaviour? I mean, I always find myself second guessing even it just in my park. If I see birds that are going about their essential business, and remember, for them, it, it it's it's as crucial as any of those massive decisions that people make in their own lives. I don't like walking across the park when when
Yeah.
the pigeons are doing their courtship displays and all
Yes.
that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, but a few years ago, I didn't give it a second thought. But now we've had this long period of reflection where we've been sitting in our rooms or um, talking about all these issues with other people and sharing more information about how we go about our amazing bird hobby. Have you changed your practice in the field in the last couple of years, Sandy, as a result of talking to more and more people?
Yeah, the more time you spend with wildlife, the more you're going to understand them and their habits. Certainly, that's been the case recently with the peregrine falcons. Yes, I have. I'm much more aware of where I should and shouldn't be. So I will back off. If you find a nest with the parents feeding, I just give it a wide berth. I stand well back. And you can tell when birds are getting upset. You can pick up the vibes that, oh, I'm getting a bit close, this is not good, back up. So yeah, and I try to be sensitive to that, where perhaps early on I wasn't.
It, was it? It was just sometimes you see people who are really intrusive because, well, it seems like it's because they really need to get the shot.
Yeah.
Um, did you ever suffer from that condition with the camera in tow, or was it more
I
that you just didn't know the
Yeah,
impact you were
it
having?
was just ignorance. No, it wasn't. I would never want to hurt or interfere with creatures. There was a there was a bit of a kerfuffle a few years ago. There were scarlet-chested parrots found in a particular location at Glupot, and I know a lot of people went there, and there was some pretty unethical behaviour because it was a nest site, and people were trying to get the shots. Um, and yeah, I heard some stories about things, and I thought, oh no, I'm not going to buy into that. That's certainly not how I want to take shots. And they were interfering with the bird's behaviour, I think.
I'd be a bastard in that situation. I'd have I'd really tell people off. I'd have a bit to say.
Yeah,
They'd hate.
yeah,
Everyone would hate me.
yeah,
I that annoys me so much, especially when there's rare birds that,
yeah,
and if it's anything to do with courtship and nesting and whatnot, it's hard enough for the buggers,
yeah,
Leave just
yes,
leave
yeah,
them alone, And if you don't get your picture, I don't care. I
mm,
was really sorry. I don't care, because you're only there. The person who's going to interfere with them to take your photo, you're only
yeah,
there because of the birds. You're not there for
yeah,
any other reason. So give them a fair shake. That's
yeah.
always what I think. All right. Well, Sharon, Janice, who else do we have? Chris. Was it Chris? Yes. Thank you for your input and involvement today. Um, Next week, I'm hoping, Sandy, I'm not sure. We haven't talked about whether you're available next week and
I'm
what
not.
time.
I'm
Sandy's
not.
not available next week. So, luckily, I've already talked to a couple of newcomers to talk about their photography. I might explore the issue of honesty with them in the post production and the representation of the images. And who knows? Maybe by next week I'll have a gadget I can hold up and go, "Woo! Look at this!" But I ordered a new hard drive the other recently, and that's only 4 weeks.
Yeah,
That was going to take. That was a guaranteed 4-day delivery 4 weeks ago.
they're
So
they're hard to get at the moment.
yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. We're not going to commit to schedules or anything like that, and we don't know who's available and whether work's going to call them or whatever. How's your car coming along, Sandy? That's an update from
Uh,
last week.
8th of September, I think. Fingers crossed. I can't wait, but yeah.
That's when Sandy's going birding again.
Yeah, then I'll have to get a bank loan to put fuel in it, but well.
Oh, oh well, oh well, oh well. Oh, sorry, Matt. All right, that's been rougher than normal. Everyone, thanks for being part of Photography Friday again. It's great when you help us out with some comments and some suggestions and whatnot, because that's what we're doing it for. Sandy, we'll see you maybe in a couple of weeks' time.
We'll see.
Hopefully your car, your new birding facilitator.
My
is not
birding
held
bus.
Up. Yes, you. Oh, I like that. The birding bus.
Birding bus, yeah.
You need to get one of those decals, mate. Sandy's birding bus.
I think so.
Very good. Very good. Thanks, everyone. I'm
Okay.
Grant Williams. I'm a bird nerd. That's Sandy Horne. She's a photographer. See you later.
Bye.